Welcome back to Stages for Ages. We are here today with Katie Clemons. She is a founder, an author, and family connection expert. And I'm very excited to have her on because she is going to be giving some invaluable information for children and parents around journaling and her books that she's written. So I'm very excited to have you on, Katie. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
Oh, thanks, Lucy. I'm really excited to be here. I love talking about kids and thinking of ways that we can engage more deeply with them.
Yeah, definitely. So introduce yourself a little bit better for me, Katie. What is it that you do? What is a family connection expert? And what are the books that you've written and your journals? How did you get into that?
Okay, well, let's first begin with I'm a mom of four. And one thing that I notice is, for example, when I pick up the kids from an activity or something, I've missed them. I'm excited to say, hey, how was it? What did you do? Like, I just have all the questions. And I think that as moms, we are like that. We just want to jump in and find out all the things about the kids' day. And the kids are like, whoa, 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 whoa. They just need a minute to stop because they've been go, 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 go. And so when you ask them these questions, they're either like, shrug, it was fine, or like, I don't know, it depends on the kid. Sometimes the response is they might tell you a story, but most kids just won't. So my goal is to help us as parents figure out, how do we tap into our kids' minds and learn about what they're doing, how they're feeling, and what's really kind of sparking their minds. And it actually all began when I was much younger and I was talking with my own grandma, and it was her 90th birthday. And we were invited to do an interview on the local public radio. So I had all these questions, kind of like I will come to our kids with today. And my grandmother just completely froze. And she's like, Katie, I don't remember. And it really struck me because here I am having all these questions. And all this time, my grandma didn't think that those questions mattered. Those stories about her life didn't matter. So fast forward to right now, and we are in my family, for example, with the four kids, like, there's just a lot going on. And I, as a mom, don't always stop and think, well, what are those stories that are really important? So the combination of trying to get the kids to tell their stories and me seeing what stories are mattering to me, to my family, maybe to our future, kind of just brought all these different ideas that I had together. And I started with writing prompt books to help prompt myself with stories. And that kept growing until today, where my biggest joy and creativity is helping families spark conversations, whether that's in a journal or that's at the dinner table or in the car, or even if for a teacher in the classroom.
Okay. I think that's a great idea. I've never been one for journaling, but something you said then, it just made me think I probably should start actually, because what you were saying about your grandma, and it just sort of made me think that my mum sadly passed away during COVID, and I was an only child. I lived just with it was just me and my mum. And obviously when she was alive, I used to ask her things, and I used to ask her questions and things about, previous family members, for example, her grandparents and or places that she'd been and things like that. And now that she's gone, I can't remember a lot of the things that she said to me and the things that she actually told me. There are certain stories that I can remember, but they're sort of fading in my mind because it was a long time ago when she originally told me that question. And now that she's not here anymore, it would have been lovely to have had something like a journal or a diary or something that I could look back on of hers and go, yes, that was what she wrote down, that was what she told me, that was the story, or that's that person she was talking about, and things like that. I think maybe it's something I probably should start doing actually, so that my son, he's got sort of a memory essentially of me as well. I did start doing something in COVID. I put together like a book, a COVID sort of memory book, which sounds a bit morbid, but it was all pictures of like the empty kind of airports and things on TV that we saw and all of that. I put pictures and everything together. So I was quite good with pictures, but I've never been one for sort of writing things down. So I think that's something that I might look into.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
How old is your son?
So he turned 5 in April. He's just recently been diagnosed with autism. He is verbal and he's very outgoing and things like that, but he's got certain trademarks of autism. So he flaps, and he's got they mentioned PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance. So he tends to kind of bulk away from if you put like a demand on him, whereas if you give him options of doing things, that works a little bit better for him. So I've kind of learned how to get him to do things now rather than telling him to do things. I have to sort of say, would you rather do one of two? And that seems to work a lot better for him now. But yeah, he was diagnosed about 3 months ago. I think we had the official diagnosis. It took about 4 years to get him diagnosed, but we had the official diagnosis about 3 months ago.
Some of the things that you're describing about him, I think, are universal truths for kids too. Like, and for anyone, we don't like being told, this is what you need to go do.
Yeah.
And what I like to do, for example, in the journals that I create, is not just have write your answer here. I kind of like to make it feel fun, like it's a game for kids. So, for example, I have my first mom and son journal. And this book, it's for 5-year-olds and 5 to 7-year-olds. And what I like to do for this particular age group is not say things like, write down your favorite fruit, write down your favorite vegetable. Because while they have their favorites, telling them, write that down, well, they're still learning how to write their own names, and, they'll be a little bit older and they'll still be mixing up B and D and P. And it feels like work. So how do we connect with our kids in a way that doesn't feel like work? And that's what I really try to lean into. So let me see if I can pull up a page in my first mom and son journal to show you. Because even for your son with autism, you might find that he likes some of the simpler things, like this right here. Mom writes, I like to, and it says, sing silly songs. And you're just circling thumbs up, thumbs down, jump on the bed. So I love when moms answer this one, right?
I like that one.
Or when kids, because the kids love to, but they're not supposed to. So I always just love the pause as they think, like, what am I supposed to say versus what's my truth?
I love that book. It's a really thick book as well, isn't it? There's a lot of things in there,
It's
isn't there?
144 pages.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when you think of journaling, we always think it's you're writing and writing and writing and writing. But
Yeah.
that's not fun. For some of us, it becomes a habit and becomes really easy. But I think for kids, we want to engage them the way they think. So, you're asking, how was school today? Well, instead of asking how school was, like, what if we drew a treasure map? And, X marks the spot with our home. And so as you're building this treasure map, here's where you start talking to them about what they did today. Like, oh, so they drew, they were at school. They were at school. So what'd you do at school today? And that's maybe when they'll start telling you. So you're recording these drawings and stories and coloring pages together. But as you're doing that, you can start talking if those are the questions that you have that you want to answer. Or you can just have fun, just spending time together without any expectations or commitments. And when you're done, you've got this really cool little keepsake that in 20 or 30 years is going to be so fun to just look at and remember that's how you wrote your name.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely idea. And like you say, you hear the word journaling, and you do, even I do, I think, it's a diary, essentially. That's a way of doing it. And you hear diary and you think it's just writing, writing, writing. How do you get a 5-year-old that, like you say, can't probably write their own name? How do you get them to write a page of a journal out? But what you've done there is a fantastic idea of just making it into a fun thing and educational as well, because they're kind of using their recall ability of what they've learned that day, but also they're learning to do things in like drawing treasure maps, for example, or maybe just drawing something in the book that they like to do. So I think it's a fantastic idea you've come up with. We've obviously we've touched on it a little bit. Why do you think sharing stories and recalling that information is important for parent and child relationships? Like, what happens in those moments when we're kind of vulnerable with our children, where we may think, well, should I say that to them? Do I want them to remember this in 20 years' time and things like that?
The biggest thing is that your kid feels seen by you. And by doing that, you start feeling seen by your kid. because all of a sudden you start understanding each other more. We might be sitting in the exact same room, but we're both sitting there with a different lens of experience and perspective, and just how much our cultures change over generations. So you might be looking at something one way and your kid looks at it in a totally different way. And so by stopping to journal or to have deeper conversations together, you get to be able to look at the world through your kid's eyes, and your kid gets to do that through yours. And, it's the simplest things sometimes, you being frustrated that, let's say, that they're not eating all their dinner, and they start talking to you and they're like confessing, well, I actually don't like this food, or they don't see the importance of why they need to save the food, but you can tell them some story about why it's important to you. And all of a sudden, this thing that was always a conflict can become less of a conflict. It can be more about understanding. And that can be a really beautiful thing when you start just developing this habit of, I see you and I understand you, or I'm trying to understand you. If you look at past generations, that, especially with fathers, wasn't something that our cultures were doing. It was kind of like, well, I was thinking of the phrase, he who makes the gold makes the rule. I would always hear that. And there wasn't any sort of dialogue about what you as the kid want or what you as the kid need. It was just, this is how it is. And we're not bringing any emotions into it. We're not bringing any discussion into it. And over generations, that has changed more and more so that kids feel like they have a voice and that they matter to us. They're not just told to be present and be quiet.
It just reminded me of, I only saw it the other day. It was on TikTok, I think, or YouTube. It was only a short video, and it was about seeing things from the other person's perspective and the other side of it. And it was, I don't know whether it was a real thing or a skit that someone had done, but it was basically like a teacher, a professor in a classroom, and he brought two students up to the table, and they both stood either side of the table. And then he puts this kind of basketball size ball down in the middle of the table, and he says to one of the students, what color is the basketball? And the student says, it's black. The other one looks at him and goes, it's not black, it's white. It's a white ball. What are you talking about? And they start arguing over the color of this ball. And then the professor says to them, right, switch sides of the table. And then that's when they realize that each side of the ball is painted a different color. So it's, to that person, it was a white ball. They weren't making it up that it was a white ball. It was a white ball. To the other side of the table, it's a black ball. But it was only when they switched the side of the table that they realized that, okay, we were arguing over something, but if we'd have maybe just talked to each other and maybe just asked, why are you seeing a black ball and I'm seeing a white ball, we'd have probably worked it out. But they just started shouting at each other instead. And I thought it was a really good sort of visual demonstration of seeing things from another person's perspective. And like you say, writing and doing journals and things like that, you get that other perspective from that other person as to why we maybe do things, or we say things to our children sometimes, or our children say things to us. And I think we go on the defensive a lot as parents sometimes. And I think children, especially the older they get, they start to go on the defensive, and rather than sitting down and just talking to each other.
Matthew, John, come up here, please. Okay, boys, turn around. And John, what color is the ball?
The ball's white.
Well, what color do you say the ball is?
Black. The ball is black, clearly.
Without looking at the ball, I want you to both switch places. Okay, both of you, please turn around. And what color is the ball now? Okay, please have a seat.
Throughout our lives, we believe many things, and we hold dear what we think is right and true. But at times there'll be others who disagree with us. What we believe to be 100% right, they believe the opposite just as strongly. Well, how can that be? Can't they see? We can become frustrated, we might grow distant, we may even sever relationships entirely. Slow down, breathe, step into the other person's shoes. It'll make all the difference.
You mentioned in the book as well, making it sort of fun rather than versus like just writing pages out. Is there a difference between sort of play with your children versus kind of just talking to them? And why is it sort of important to put pen to paper together rather than doing it individually, if that makes sense?
Sure. Well, going back to your basketball analogy, which is so gorgeous, Lucy, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it?
see things. We're so convinced about how things are sometimes that it's really easy for any of us, especially as moms. I think when we're working with our kids and we are so busy, we have so many things on our minds. We have to figure out still what's for dinner, get everybody where they need to go. Do they have the clean clothes? Do we pack all the things? And it's so easy to just be like, this is what you need to do. And we forget to just maybe be a little bit more kind, a little bit more patient, because we are so focused on trying to keep all those things in our heads, balance all those balls that are going and going and going. So I think that writing is a really, really powerful way to work between a parent and a child, because sometimes as parents, we have all those things in our heads. So we're not really listening or watching to see what our kids need. Then when our kids write it down, that's when we can look at it and be like, yeah. And our kids on the flip side, their biggest goal right now is to make sure that when they're interacting with you, that you're happy with them. And sometimes that means that they're going to not say things that they're really feeling or that they're struggling with. They're going to do the things that they know that you want, and they might not even realize they're doing this. But when you when a kid puts down words on paper, they can focus on how they are feeling and worry less about how mom is going to respond, how dad is going to respond. And this is not as much relevant to the 5 to, let's say, 7 or 8 year olds, but so here's the next book that I would encourage a mother and son to work on together. It's Between Mom and Me. And so here you are writing, it has more writing things, but also still emphasizing the drawing together, check boxes. But for example, let's see, here's one about school. Which school subject is there's a good chance that by just giving them a little bit of white space, they might say more than like science. They might say something specific about it. And what I like to do then is nudge it a little bit harder. So the next question is, why do you think it's so hard? And these are questions that just by having the paper in front of them, they're only thinking about what it is, what that subject is, why it's hard for them. And then here's the big one. How can I help make it easier? So here I'm giving you a whole page. Is your son or daughter going to fill out that much? It depends on the child, but they see that they have the space to breathe and to share that if they want to. And so what I like to do then, Lucy, is have follow-up questions from mom. And so she's like, in this case, the kid is asking, what are your thoughts on what I wrote about school? And which subjects did you struggle with when you were my age? Because as moms, we're so focused on let me help fix your problem. So maybe here's a little perspective for both of us. Like, oh yeah, I remember when this science project was really hard for me too. Or actually, what's weird is it was English that was so hard for me. And here's why. I really admire how good you are at, and here's the last question. How does knowing that subject help your life today? So little questions that sometimes when we're having the dialogue together, we can't dig deep into. But by having prompts on paper, sometimes that can open us up just a little bit more and be more receptive to each other's experiences and being more aware of how those experiences have shaped who we are too.
Yeah. I think having prompts is a great idea, because I think, like you say, I ask my son every day when he comes out of school. Obviously, he's 5, so it's very limited in terms of he talks constantly. But you ask him when he comes out of school, what have you done today? He had forest school yesterday, and I thought I was going to get, oh, we've climbed a tree, we've looked at this, yeah, it was all right, thanks. So having those prompts there would have been quite useful, because maybe when he's sort of come home and he's had his tea and he's sort of relaxed a little bit, I could have maybe looked at those prompts and then kind of asked him questions about his day using those prompts. Because you kind of, other than, how was your day at school, if you don't get anything from them, it's a bit like, okay, where do I go next? What do I ask next to get more information out of them? If you sort of run out of things to ask.
Well, what you can do too is, so here's he had this big day. He's in the forest, and you take it and you break that down into something really, really small. Not right away. Like you said, let him have his tea, let him relax a little bit. And then, you're there busy doing your thing. Maybe you're making a sandwich, or you're there. So your hands are busy, and he's not feeling like you're like, all
Yeah.
like, give me a great speech about what you did. Instead, try just being like, so did you see any insects today? As you're putting the mayonnaise on the bread, and just a little tiny thing. And sometimes that little thing, if he's like, yeah, I did. And he might start telling you more about it. The flip side is, sometimes just like, I don't remember. And that's okay. So then maybe a little bit later, you think of another little tiny thing like, did you play with a stick? Or did you find a stick? So there you're asking him to start. If he found a stick, he's going to start telling you about the stick or maybe what he did with the stick. And so instead of asking him this really big question, you're taking this tiny question. And what you can usually find out, like with the stick, he's going to tell you if, like, oh, I was hitting people and I got in trouble. Or he's telling you, I was, like listening to it bang on these different things, or I was using it to dig, or what was he doing with that stick? And so you don't know about his whole day. I mean, it's impossible for anybody to describe their whole day, but you're teaching him how to just pull out this little interesting moment from his day. And you can tell by how he tells you that story. Did he have a good day? Or was there a problem? And you can kind of help walk him through that problem if you find out that there was one. Or you just celebrate with him like, wow, that sounds really fun. Those are always the best days. You're just talking about a stick, but you see how happy he is. And that automatically makes you happy because as moms, we just soak in whatever their emotional experience is.
Yeah. I know you saying that about when doing it when they're a bit more calm and not doing it straight after school, but I think it's kind of like ingrained in us for some reason as adults to, as soon as your kid comes out of school, how was your day, sweetie? What have you done at school? And you kind of bombard them with these questions. And thinking about it now, like the most I get out of my son about his day or at school is generally just before he's going to bed. He likes to go to bed and sit in his bed, and rather than we'll read a book or something like that, but then he likes to tell me about his day when he's in bed. I always get the most information out of him when he's sort of settled and he's relaxed, but I still ask him every single day when he comes out of school. So it's like, I don't know why I do that rather than just leaving it and just ask him when he's going to bed, because that always seems to be the time that he wants to tell me about his day and talk to me. So it's obviously sort of like, it's just a parent thing, I suppose, that we feel the need to kind of get the most information out of them as soon as we can.
I think I can't speak too much for the United Kingdom, but for like the United States or Canada, whenever we see somebody, we immediately ask, how are you?
Yeah.
And so it's immediately like, boom, go. And so I think it's really easy for us then to just take that to our kids too. We see you, hey, how are you? Think about it this way. When you come home from the grocery store, you're overstimulated because again, you're thinking about all of the things, like all the food you need to get, all the meals you need to make, now you need to put it all away. And just imagine you're carrying the food in and all these things you still have to do with the food, and somebody's immediately like, hey, did you buy and like, what did you get? What are you going to do with it? And you're like, I just need to put it away. Just give me a minute to put it away and in silence, or, like, I don't want to be thinking about what I just did. I just want to finish. And for them, it's kind of that, I just need to finish, get home and just exhale. I think it's kind of the same for us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's silly things like when I go into a shop, for example, I don't like going into shops, and you get that sort of, you will, especially in clothes shops and things like that, you get those like salespeople that will come up to you. Can I help you? Can I help you with anything? Do you want to know? No, if I want to know, I'll come and ask. I'm like, leave me alone. I just want to do my shopping. So it's a bit like that, So yeah, it's obviously just a parent thing. I think we need to sometimes just take a breather and let maybe our children come to us with the information rather than trying to force it out of them.
Or just come to them when it feels like maybe they're a little bit more ready.
Yeah. And I think we forget as well how overstimulating school can be, especially younger children, when it's sort of more play-based, but then even when they get older, where they've got, exams and all of the pressures of exams and things like that going on. And, the last thing I wanted to do when I came home from school is talk about school. I wanted to have my tea and then maybe go out with my friends for a bit when I was older, or play a game or play with my toys. I didn't want to be talking about school as soon as I got out of school. So yeah, I think it's important to sort of maybe just take a breath and just let them, have a breather for a bit and then ask them some questions. But which is why I think the prompt ideas and the books that you've come up with are a fantastic solution for parents to be able to help communicate a little bit better with their children and get that information there as well. You've helped kind of a lot of families over your career. I think, was it 750,000 that you wrote down that you
Yeah, I've sold
yeah,
250,000 books. So it's
that's a lot. Have there been any patterns that you've seen in either how parents communicate with their children or the patterns of like the problems that they have with communicating with their children? Are there any sort of things that you've kind of noticed with what parents are struggling with in their children?
I think that the biggest thing is that as parents, we just want to go fix the problem for our kids. We get this mama bear, I'm coming in, I'm going to go save it. And most often our kids don't want us to save them. They just want us to listen. And that as a parent can be so hard. Like, how do we listen when we hear that there's this thing that's not okay and it's not okay for our kid? But instead I try to think, well, what tools can we give our kid so that they can walk into that situation and just be stronger and be better and do better.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, it is difficult because we want to fix things for our children, and I think sometimes, like you say, it's better to equip them rather than try to fix the problem. Sometimes, obviously, I think there are certain things that we do need to fix, but generally speaking, I think it is just equip them with the information maybe that they need to be able to sort of fix it themselves or cope with things themselves. Like from when Jacob, my little boy, was very little, I'm not perfect with it. It's still ongoing and it's still a sort of an ongoing process, but because he's always sort of struggled with not his emotions generally, but he gets very, very worked up very, very quickly. Like he can go from 0 to 1,000 like that. And I've always been very sort of from a very early age trying to get him to sort of name his emotions and learn his emotions so that he can tell me how he's feeling. And now he'll come up to me and he'll say, "Mummy, I'm feeling sad," or "I'm feeling angry," or, "I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that." And I'll say to him, "Do you want my help to calm down? Do you need my help? Do you need me to do something?" And he'll say yes or no. If he's getting to a point where he is really struggling, he will say, "I can't calm down on my own, Mummy, I need your help." And he's 5. And I think that's because I've kind of put that work in with him when he was quite young. And it's taken a long time. He's only just started doing that, but it's really helped me be able to know whether I need to leave him alone and just give him space and let him deal with it himself, or does he need me to step in and does he need me to help him with whatever it is that he's needing help with.
That's beautiful, Lucy. And it's a test of your patience too, sometimes, I know. So
Yeah, very much so. You mentioned in your information that you gave me, and obviously the research that I've done on you and what I've looked at, you mentioned 10 minutes of meaning. So what does this mean? What's the 10 minutes of meaning, and what does that look like in practice for an exhausted parent, and how can they do this?
Okay. Well, one thing I like to do is I send out newsletters twice a week. And you can get them if you'd like at katieclemons.com. And I send out one on Tuesdays that is a printable activity. And so sometimes that's stuff like we've been talking about in the journals. And so and sometimes it's more interactive kind of game things, cutting out things I can't put in books. So those are, oh my gosh, those are so fun to make. They're so fun to do with my kids. And they're really fun to see how other families or teachers in their classes are using these activities. I think, let's see. Oh gosh, the one that I just recently sent out was drawing eyebrows on these people to express emotions. So we're just thinking about how are we expressing our emotions? And then there's some conversation starters to kind of get your family talking about that. Or there's some crafty ones recently too. The other one I like to do, which kind of really leans into what you're saying as well, is on Fridays, I send out a conversation starter to the folks who follow my newsletter. And these are things that are sometimes silly. They're sometimes serious. So like a serious one could be things like my son was recently at a friend's house and they put out food that he doesn't like for lunch. And so it was talking about, how do you talk to your kid about this? Like, instead of you coming up with a solution, take this conversation starter to your own dinner table, and I'll talk about how do we handle this as our family? Where do we stand on what you do when this happens? Then the flip side is we sometimes have some silly conversation starters. Let me see if I have one that I just sent out. This is a serious one that I just sent out. What's something you're proud of yourself for, even if no one else noticed? And that has opened up so many beautiful conversations at families. So it's not
that's a
not
nice
a silly
question.
one, but then I also like to throw in the silly ones, like, talking about what if people in our family had wings or if we had tails? How would a dinner be different right now?
Yeah. Is this the same as the curious questions that you've mentioned? Is that like, what are they? Are they sort of the same thing? Are they different? What are curious questions?
Yeah. So, in my books, I definitely like to mix in some silly. So not like what if aliens landed? Not like that kind of direction. More silly, like just loosening up inside your family. And sometimes as parents, we're like, I've forgotten how to be fun.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to forget how to be fun when you are the one who's managing so many things in your family.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just like to throw in what I think are some funny things. Do you want a specific example? I can flip through here and see if something pops out.
Yeah, if you've got any.
Okay, sure. Let's see here. This is a sneaky silly to me. This here is writing your name a bunch of times.
Okay.
So here I can write my name in capital letters, extra fancy. You're going to write it like a teacher upside down, and here at the end with your toes. So I find things like that, like the kid thinks I'm just writing it, and all of a sudden they're having to write with their toes.
That's a good one.
That kind of silly, because then guess what? The next page, mom's going to try to write her name with her toes. It's so much fun.
Oddly enough, I used to be able to do that.
In fact, you know that? That's amazing.
I don't think I still can, but I used to be able to do it. Not well, but I could do it. It was legible anyway. So we're just sort of talking about it then, and sort of touched upon it with the having silly questions and forgetting how to have fun with our children. And obviously we do as we get older. It's, is there a difference between entertaining your children, playing with your children, and connecting with your children? Like, is there a difference with those two things, or are they kind of mutually exclusive, the two things?
I think that they can be together as one. My opinion is that the connection part, if the parent focuses more on the connection part, they're going to enjoy it more. Because, like if your son loves building trains, if your son loves talking about some like Minecraft or something, like that for you is going to get really boring after a while. But it's not boring to him. It's still really interesting. It's really exciting. There's still a lot to cover. There's still a lot of train routes to build. So if you come into this not thinking, oh my gosh, like more Minecraft, more trains, instead, you come into this that I'm coming in here to spend this time with my son and to just enjoy what he enjoys, or rather, enjoy him. And I think that by coming in with that connection angle, we as parents can enjoy these moments a little bit more. Older generations will always tell us that you're living the best part of your life. Make sure you're seizing it. Don't waste it. But it's really hard to just be like, I just can't do this activity again. So I like to just think I'm not going in for the activity. I'm going in for the connection.
Okay. And obviously, from everything we were sort of talking about with the books and the journaling and connecting with your children and just talking to your children, we're obviously, or have been talking about children that may want to do these activities and may want to sit down with their parents and complete the book and, answer these questions. Do you have any advice for parents who are maybe feeling like their children don't want to connect or don't want to participate with them? So, for a parent that maybe buys one of these books, they go with the best intentions to sit down with their kid and you say, let's do this together and let's have fun. And, they maybe just get, the door slammed in their face, like, Mum, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to do this book. What advice, if any, do you have for those parents that maybe have that going on?
What I do when I want to make sure my son is journaling. My 8-year-old is a very reluctant writer. So sometimes he looks at my own books and he's like, that's work. You can't fool me. But I'll be like just flipping through the pages and be like, I bet I know what you would want to draw here. Or I wonder what you would want to write here. Or I just turn another page and I'm like, this is really funny. Have you seen this? I'm like inviting him over to see what this page is asking him to do. And I'm like, oh, this one here. Here's what I think, but this go, do you like this idea that I just put down in here?
Yeah.
So I'm just making it seem like something really interesting to me. You could do the same thing when you're reading, if your younger children, like picture book, ones who like to be read picture books, are just kind of wild or they're restless and you know that they just need to take that minute to calm. And if you're inviting them over to come read a picture book with you, they're not going to do it necessarily. But if you open it and you just start reading it aloud to yourself, there's a good chance they'll come. So doing the same thing with journaling works so well.
Okay. I think I might try that with my little boy actually, because he's fantastic with numbers and he loves being read too. But as soon as I try and get him to read himself, because he struggles with blending words together, so he's really good with all his letters, he knows his letters, but you start getting him to blend the words together sort of in phonics and things like that, and he just, especially when he's at home because he's been doing it at school, I don't want to do this, mummy, I don't want to do it, you do it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I know how to read. You do it. So I
already did that at school.
I've done my school. That's it. I'm done. But I think I might try what you said.
I've got a page in here for you. Somewhere like we're going to, in this page, you are counting how many different things you have in your house, like how many different mirrors or doors. And so you just you're looking at the book as Lucy, the mom, and you're like, gosh, I wonder how many doors we have in this house. And he's like, I could go count them.
Yeah.
So he goes to count them. And then you're like, let's write that right here. Will you write that for me? And boom, you just got him journaling and he didn't even know it.
Yeah. That's a really good idea. I think, yeah, like I will try that, because doing the reading and things like that, I'll say, oh, I'll just sit there and read his book, for example, and just go, wow, what's this word? Or I'll maybe try doing that with him, see if I can get him intrigued. If you could give parents permission to let go or forget one thing that's getting in the way of connecting with their children, what would you say that would be?
That is an easy question for me. And that's because I know that there's one thing that we all struggle with as parents. And that is this absolute belief that we are not doing enough and that we should be doing more. But I want to tell you that you are not alone. This is a universal feeling. I still feel all the time. Every mom I know, every mom who picks up my books, every mom or dad or grandparent who's just trying to raise great kids, we're all there with you. And I always want to just reach out and give people a big hug. You've got this. You're doing better than you think.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely thing to remind parents of. And it reminded me of the quote or saying that parenting is only hard for the parents who care. It's only hard for the ones that are actually trying to raise children, and do it properly. That's why it's hard, because we are trying to do our best for our children, and it's hard for all of us.
The things you care about are always the hardest.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Katie. Can you tell people where they can come and find your journals, find your books, and get in contact with you as well if they want any more information from you about connecting, and where they can find you?
Sure. Well, if you'd like to try some sample journal pages, you can come on over to my website. It's katieclemons.com. And that's like Katie, Katie, the letter C, and then lemons, like the fruit. Thinking about summertime here. katieclemons.com. And I got some sample pages for you if you do /write. So
Lovely.
Write like a pen on paper. Now, if you're specifically just wanting to jump right into my books, a good place to go is Amazon. So like Amazon UK, and hopefully you can find exactly the one you're looking for. I've written over 20 different journals and conversation starter books. So we've only talked about a few here, but there's a lot of fun different options for all kinds of family dynamics.
Lovely. And I will put all of Katie's links and the links to your Amazon books as well, to your page on Amazon, so that people can come and find your books on Amazon as well. It's been really lovely talking to you, Katie. I think a lot of parents are going to find a lot of help and a lot of information from this episode and speaking with you, because I think connection is something that we all want with our children, but sometimes it's something that we potentially all struggle to get, or maybe we are getting it but we don't feel like we're getting it in the right way sometimes. So yeah, I think we maybe sometimes have like these ideals of sitting down with our children and having these hour-long heart-to-heart chats, and that's connection. But those little 5 minutes that we have with them at the kitchen table while they're eating their dinner, that's also connection. So I think having someone like you just kind of giving those books and the journal ideas is a great thing. So thank you for coming on and sharing your sort of story and your journaling ideas. I think it's been lovely.
Oh, thanks, Lucy. I very much enjoy it, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. And gosh, yeah, if anybody has a desire to make connection with your kids a little bit more fun, a little bit deeper, I'm here for you. Always here for you.
Thank you so much. And we will see everyone on the next episode of the For All Stages and Ages podcast, and look forward to seeing you all soon.